There has been an awful lot of talk about Barcelona not being able to put away these smaller teams like Getafe and Leganés. And I do have to admit it's highly exaggerated because if you watch Barcelona, they are still creating a lot of chances. But sometimes the guys are just struggling to put away these chances because we have gotten so used to the high quality chances that we have seen under Mr. Hansi Flick. In this video, we're going to take a look maybe at why Barcelona needs to tweak a few things. As always, subscribe to the channel, but let's start with the video. The first thing in my opinion that we have to talk about is the lack of width that Barcelona have. Because when teams are so narrow, the first thing you would want to do is you want to stretch these teams. But we all know how involved Rafinha is in this half space and very close to Robert Lewandowski. You can go check out the average positionings. And also with the involvement of Lamine Yamal so deep nowadays that he drops extremely deep, and we've talked about this. And this works great against the bigger teams, but I do not get why he's doing this against the smaller teams, right? Maybe Hansi Flick is telling him to do all of this, right? And the reason why he's dropping deep, this is to help out in the build-up should Barcelona struggle. But we don't struggle against the likes of Getafe. So why is Lamine still dropping extremely deep in order to come and help out with the build-up, right? These smaller teams could be like literally an off day for Lamine Yamal where he's just staying wide and let these guys do their things, right? So the lack of width and the involvement of Lamine Yamal in the build-up against these smaller teams is highly unnecessary. They should just stay wide, and even like Balde's positioning as well when Rafinha is inverting, right? So these are all things that we can look at. But first of all, it's a lack of width because we are not stretching the opposition at all. Now, don't get me wrong, the fact that Lamine Yamal is dropping off and doing this, he's actually pulling a lot of players out of position, right? But that's not the problem. How are we capitalizing off of that? And I feel like we're not doing that at the moment because the fullback is following him, right? So he creates that necessary space, but who's going to run in? Because look at where Koundé finds himself. You need maybe this midfielder to run into that space that Lamine Yamal is going to vacate for you, right? And not only that, the wing is not a problem by itself as well, but the fact that who's going to run through these two center backs, that is maybe where Lewandowski come into play or a Ferran Torres, but we are not capitalizing off of this that Lamine does. The second thing I want to say here is that when Rafinha and all of these guys come in, Barcelona tend to draw the whole of the opposition to this one side, right? And I feel like we are not utilizing the space that Balde finds himself in correctly. And this is also where my problem with Ronald Araujo comes in, right? And a lot of you fanboys of Araujo is going to have a problem with this since he signed a new contract until 2031. But I feel like Kubarsi should be in this position right here because many a times these switches, and we barely saw that against, I don't know who we played the other day, right? Where we drew, I think it was Getafe. We didn't even see any switches, especially when the left or the right hand side at Lamine Yamal's wing is so overcrowded. We barely see any switches, and this is what I was saying in that game, the lack of leadership from him. And I know I'm gonna get a lot of backlash, I don't care, but this is the truth, right? Where are we gonna see these switches? And the last person that did the switches was Inigo Martinez, and we are missing this guy a lot now because he can switch both sides. So the lack of capitalizing off of Balde's space is also a huge problem for FC Barcelona. Now I want you guys to hear me out. I actually believe that in this overload to isolate tactic, Koundé should be staying back so that Ronald Araujo can go a little bit towards the left into the middle of the pitch so that Kubarsi can go a little bit wide, right? And that will allow Balde to go forward, but because Kubarsi is in the middle, Balde cannot really decide whether to go forward or not, right? But this can be a serious tactic because we as Barcelona fans are so used to the fact that Messi and Jordi Alba used to do this constantly. And I don't know why we aren't capitalizing off of the fact that these switch plays towards Balde, especially when we have the ball at Lamine Yamal's side, can be so effective. Another thing I think is really lacking at Barcelona and why we're not breaking down these smaller teams is if it's because of the lack of line-breaking passes that we have been so used to, especially from the likes of Pau Kubarsi. We rarely see a line-breaking pass into these danger areas probably because everything is so tight and so congested, right? But I do want to say that I think we should still try this, because if we should lose the ball, there's enough place between the lines to do the gegenpressing, right? But I have seen, especially against Getafe, that Barcelona is still trying to get through these areas and just do the intricate passing. But I do feel like the line breaking passes should really come back. And Ronald Araujo, and it might seem like I'm picking on him, but it's just the truth. He's not somebody who's going to do that, give you a line breaking pass. I've seen he does try to do it, but he's not so accurate like the likes of Pau Cubarsí and Inigo Martinez, right? But I would like to see more line breaking passes from Barcelona. I want to give a special mention here to Frankie de Jong. The other day against Benfica, he was just sensational, and he made a huge difference. And I have to give credit where it's due, right? He's so great in these pressure situations, especially against these chaotic games. And I posted a short saying that minutes before he got substituted on, I actually texted somebody and say, this game needs Frankie, because he brings Barcelona that extra control, allowing these forwards to go and do the damage up front. However, something else that I saw, especially against Getafe, and I can understand now why Rafinha is throwing his arms up in the air and having these attitudes sometimes, because it's so frustrating where the center backs, when you see these guys making the runs in behind, they almost never passes the ball over the top for the likes of Rafinha, Balde, and also Gavi making these runs, especially with Lamine Yamal as well. So it's frustrating, because if Gavi is making a run, why are you not passing the ball to him? Why are you not passing the ball to him? And then it seems like Barcelona is struggling to get in behind. Even Pedri and Casado as well. Sometimes when Rafinha is making a run, is coming from the touchline, they almost never passes the ball to these guys. And I want to challenge you guys, go watch these games against the smaller teams. How many runs are being made in behind, and these players simply just don't get the ball. They just don't pass the ball towards them, right? So the things are there, we're just not executing it correctly, and that is why it may seem to a lot of people like we are struggling. And it, like I'm saying, it's over exaggerated, right? Because if we would give these balls to the like of Gavi and Rafinha, Lamine Yamal, when they make these runs in behind, it's frustrating when you do these runs constantly and the people are not passing the ball towards you, right? So that is another thing, that we almost never, when the ball goes over the top, these guys never just receive the ball where they can go and do the damage. So that's another thing that we have to look at. And man, we may be going to see Rafinha win the Ballon d'Or before Vinicius Jr. and Tuchel Mbappe. That's going to be upset of the century if this guy is continuing what he's doing right now in the bigger games, right? And the Shark, imagine, everybody's talking about the goal, but the assist from Ferran Torres, right? And don't forget this guy right here, Lamine Yamal. Like, these guys are just sensational, and it's all down to Flick, how he is incorporating all of these big guns, and how Gavi also made that number 10 position his own because of his lung busting, defending, and pressing that he's doing. As always, guys, please do subscribe to the channel. It's going to help us a lot. I will see you guys in the next one.